Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Enterprise Dish. We are hanging out with the boys from Ohio. It's myself, obviously in Cincinnati, and Mr. Rick Vanover up in Columbus. So if you're not a fan of Ohio, I do apologize, but it's an all-Ohio show today.
Yeah, it's a great time to be in Ohio. I don't know what's going on with summer, but it's sticking around later. I think we're going to crack over 28 Celsius, around 90 degrees here today. So what's up with that? I don't know.
We are going to get bamboozled of a fall, I suspect. It's going to go straight from my AC running 24/7 to my furnace running 24/7, and we are going to get no fall, and I'm going to be angry. But for right now,
binary weather, I'll take it.
Yeah, binary weather is an appropriate way to describe exactly how it is outside, because my kid and my dog are not happy with the heat, because it's like it was so hot over the weekend we couldn't even really get outside. But things are heating up in the world of Microsoft here a little bit. So Microsoft is announcing Windows Virtual Desktop. Now, they've been talking about this, Rick, since Ignite 2018. That's when they first said, hey, we're going to go encroach on all of our competitors' territories, or actually supplemental companies, because they have a lot of ISVs, I almost said ISPs, who offer similar services. But Microsoft Windows Virtual Desktop is coming out of preview. It is going to be generally available, which Microsoft says means it's ready for production workloads. It's going to be the next hottest thing, or is it, Rick?
I've been watching this, and we talked about part of this technology before. Mm-hmm. I like it, but I don't think it's a use case for me, and really a lot of situations that people like me use. Now, if I'm managing a group of knowledge workers or task workers in a very consistent environment, maybe, but I'm not biting on it. So, maybe convince me otherwise. I'll stand at, set up my little table and tell me I'm wrong and drink my coffee and listen to you. But I think about mobility. I think about the compute power of endpoint devices today, and the fact that what really matters are the apps. Mm-hmm. And all those different form factors. I've changed, but I used to be an Android phone individual, an iPad tablet individual, and a Windows desktop individual. But I had apps that would translate through those, and I was completely seamless, right? The apps are what matter. Yep. So refactoring the desktop, Rickatron's not biting. I love my Windows technology, but I'm not biting on it.
So I had a chance to talk to some people from Microsoft last week about this, and this might back up your theory here. They said they told me the number one application that is running on Windows Virtual Desktop through all the preview programs was Office.
I believe it. Actually, I would challenge that they're excluding a browser in that number, because they're maybe not calling that an app. Mm-hmm. But I would actually look at myself, and if they say Office, if they're including Outlook, okay, that's where it gets blurry. If you're including Outlook and then Word and Excel, because when you just told me Office, I'm thinking Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Visio, Access. I look at Outlook as a different beast in that, right? So I absolutely agree if you'd say Outlook is the most popular in terms of runtime compute cycles from telemetry. But I would love to see those numbers decoupled from the rest of Office, because I think there's more to that number. And then if you take a browser and if you take Outlook and take those aside, because I actually think Outlook, or Lookout as I like to call it, has a really good experience in a browser, by the way, and it just continues to get better. So I actually think full-blown Outlook will kind of subdue a little bit. And I actually find myself using the web-based Outlook a lot more often. But there's a lot more. There has to be more to that number, right? Yeah. Because, yes, I feel that they can take that statistic and say, this will be the best delivery mechanism for these applications that we make and that you use. I get that, but I'd love to see that split between Outlook and the rest of Office.
I really think this is Microsoft's long-term future of setting up a world of thin clients. I think this is step one for them. When they look at the trajectory of what is happening to Windows and where it's going and the powerful applications that Windows enables, but you don't always necessarily need a powerful endpoint. I think that this is Microsoft kind of hedging their bets, saying, hey, when the thin client future arrives, we'll at least have the infrastructure, let our clients run it. The other thing that kind of trips me up about this, while I understand from their perspective that this is the new hot thing or whatever, they're basically giving it away for free. If you have licenses, if you have Microsoft 365, you can already use this for no additional cost. So to me, that while that's a nice benefit and feature, it also tells me that they don't think customers may be ready to pay for it explicitly yet, which also kind of hits on the, hey, what's the long-term or real use case here if it's not just an actual add-on?
Well, you hit it exactly right, that when the time is ready, the technology is there.
Yep.
And to make the barrier of entry low, aka cost.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes. My issue is it is not going to be a technology that's going to displace my primary desktop device.
Yep. Well, you still need one to access it. That's the thing.
Well, if we're going to talk about the next thing we talk about, maybe not. But the thought here is that, I mean, I use VMware View for a use case, but I can't replace everything what I do for that. I think that there's long-term connectivity issues to really remove the barriers for that. And okay, now this is where it gets a little bit specific for me. I fly more than basically anybody I know. I enjoy, at least with my T-Mobile phone, I enjoy free Wi-Fi on the airline I fly worldwide, which is wonderful. But it's not 100%.
Sure.
And my thought is if I'm replacing, and let's forget the mobile phone, but the thought is if I'm on a plane, I'm going to have Wi-Fi. But it's not 100%. So, if I'm cut off in a world of thin clients, I'm just carrying around a screen, at that point. And so I think we all can agree that the IT type person, so you, me, and most of the listeners of this podcast, I think that we all are a multi-device persona.
Yeah.
Right. So there's going to be a spectrum of there's always going to be a phone. There's likely going to be a tablet. There's likely going to be a PC. And then now these fourth, fifth, and X devices are going to include cloud-based desktops. I actually think I think it's a more fundamental shift of making it's the fourth device, actually. I like that. That's a buzzword. Let's take it.
Fourth device. We got to go register those domains and
yeah, it's like the fourth platform. It's that next refactoring of our technology. I mean, you could argue that the fifth platform could be just identity based, like with what your Microsoft identity can be used for, or same with what Google is doing. It just transcends services and is completely irrelevant of device and platform. But I actually think that the virtual desktop is really, because you say how many devices and what types of devices you have. People are going to enumerate three, phone, tablet, desktop, laptop. Right? And this is basically that fourth platform. That's got to be what the strategy is. And again, refine the technology, base it on Windows, host it in the cloud, and power it, iterate it, make it attractive. I think that's got to be the whole strategy for sure.
Yeah. And this dovetails very nicely into other things that are happening in the industry, because earlier this month, Google and actually Dell joined up, and they're launching they're calling these things Chromebook enterprise devices. Historically speaking, Chromebook has been regulated to more of the entry-level market, the education sector, the whatever you want to call it. But now Google they're not shying away from it. And so they're teaming up with Dell, and I suspect we will see other companies. The question is, when or if does the Chrome OS become a threat to the enterprise from Microsoft's perspective?
So I hate to go back in history, but I was actually looking to see when exactly it was, and it's actually so old that Google's letting me down.
Yep.
But do you remember in 1998, 1999, maybe 2000, Oracle launched this thing called the New Internet Computer? Do you remember that?
It sounds vaguely familiar.
And I got it, internet, don't let me down. It was basically called the NIC, New Internet Computer. Here we go. Good old Wikipedia never lets me down.
Yep.
June 6th, 2000. June 6th, year 2000. So exactly 19 plus and a half some years ago. So what this was, now Oracle, very established enterprise brand, right?
Yep.
Oracle had a vision for this. And actually, I bought 6 of them. They actually were adequate for what they were at the time.
Yeah.
They were a computer without a hard drive. What they were, and then this is also before Wi-Fi was prevalent. This was also before non-rotational media like SSDs and Flash were really a thing at all. But Oracle created this very lightweight computer. All it did was boot a CD that ran a runtime Linux, and it had hardware for a modem to connect for the internet. There was Cat5 Ethernet, so you could do that. That was a Chromebook before there were Chromebooks. It was a Chrome desktop before there was, and it was what's the word, like live CDs of Linux, basically, things like that.
Yep.
It was something like that, and it was way ahead of its time, and it failed miserably. And the biggest barrier was connectivity, like modem based. In fact, it only cost US dollars $199. It was actually the cheapest compute device you could buy at the time, and I was actually buying it for a bunch of old people, which was kind of a bad idea because it was a little bit complex. But anyways, it was an interesting idea. When I look at Google's Chromebook Enterprise, so like you shared with me an article. No, I don't think it's a threat to Windows, but I do think it's an additional option. You could look at education embracing this, for example. Chromebooks are very popular in education. You could transition that to the staff. So that could be the enterprise use case, but I really don't bite on it, and let me explain why. I think that the software spectrum isn't all browser-based just yet, and I also think that many of the softwares that really matter for businesses and enterprise in that matter, there's connectivity, there's drive sharing, there's applications, there's even plugins, and there's even like a movement going on among some of my people to actually move away from Chrome as a browser. Yeah, in fact, someone was talking to me about this new browser, and I want to try it, called Brave. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yeah. I actually know somebody who works on that.
Yeah, so it's like there's an individual I know that I really kind of appreciated their perspective. And then if you think about some of the plugin type things, even with Chrome, life isn't completely easy. So I'm not biting on it yet, but I do think with a very good established Chromebook, mojo jam going on in education, there's an opportunity, I think, to build on that and crack in an enterprise angle. And it might end up just being for universities and such, right? Or education space. But I don't think, I feel like the Oracle NIC, New Internet Computer, was maybe 10, 15 years ahead of its time. Maybe this is a couple years ahead of its time, but I actually think that Google has the wherewithal to seed the market and seed the technology, refine it, so that when things like connectivity change, when things like the enterprise app landscape change, they have not just 5 years of runtime, but more like 15 or 20 from the Chromebook concept, and it's possible, but I'm not biting on it for now. Maybe I'm just in a bad mood. Maybe we shouldn't do these Monday morning. I don't know.
It's the best time to do them, Rick. It's the best time. It'll be interesting to see. That's a very interesting parallel to where Google's at. I think probably the biggest difference, maybe a little bit, is that Google just has massive cash flow, and that they can just sit and wait this out. Like they don't need Chromebook for Enterprise to turn a profit realistically anytime.
Well, the other thing they have is an incredible connectivity, right? Yep. They own so many lines and so many cable services. I almost feel like there's this broadband mafia going on. That doesn't sound very good, but a lot of cities that have like the Google Fiber service love it, right? And they own a lot of lines across the world, as I understand it. So there's that, which might solve part of my big objection. Will it include 4G and cell service? Those are good questions that can go into a Chromebook. Which, if you can make connectivity ubiquitous, we're talking.
Yeah, but we're getting there, but we're not there yet. It's not there yet.
Yeah, exactly. And then, or satellite might just be the solution. Once broadband satellite is democratized and as free as your regular Wi-Fi, then maybe we got something going on.
Yeah, we will see. Although I don't think we're too far off from that. There's a couple of companies vying for it. I think latency is going to be the big challenge there.
It will, for sure.
Satellites aren't close.
all that physics,
Yeah, until they figure out how to beat physics, which that'll be a story within itself.
Yeah.
So, all right, Mr. Rick, what else is going on in your life? What do you got for the dish? You traveling at all? Anything going on? Obviously, you're back in the home base for once. I shouldn't say for once, but infrequently.
I've been in the middle of a very busy stretch. I remember we spoke. Can't remember if I was home or not last, but if I look at the last 6 weeks and including the next 2, right? I've been very busy. I was in Brazil, then Argentina, then home, then China.
Wow.
Then home. Last week, Denmark. This week, home, except for one little trip to Toronto for one night. And then next week, I go to Switzerland and Czech Republic. So out of an 8-week stretch, it hurts that much.
That's. I was thinking, man, I'm headed to New York tomorrow, and that's not even a blip on your radar.
Well, it hurts a little bit, but then I have a big decompress towards the end of the year. So this is
That's good.
2/3 through that heaviest stretch of the year for me, and then it's cruise control. So I like to say there's, in fact, at Veeam we have these core values. I would grab it, but I'd probably drop something. But one of the core values is something called Veeam Speed, and I actually made up that term, and it is actually very deep. There's a lot of ways you can define it, but I've never been at a company that when you need to hustle, you need to hustle.
Yeah.
And I've never had a feeling like that as this. And some people who are in sales, they have the end of quarter spike, they get that and all. But when you look at a multi-week hustle stretch, 2 months, that if you kind of break out the year, it's an incredible shake. It's amazing, but I love to put the hustle on it, and I know it's coming. I knew that this part of the year would be my heaviest, and my wife's a real saint, to help us keep up with the house. And, we've got help and childcare and all that. But so short answer, yes, I do have some trips coming up.
As is tradition around here, as is tradition. Well, Rick, we very much appreciate you helping us kick off the week to everybody else. Make sure you hit the subscribe buttons and all that stuff to keep up with everything that's going on in the IT Pro sector and the travel, to be honest, because a lot of our co-hosts are all over the world, quite literally. And Rick, we appreciate it. And we'll catch all of you right back here next time.